What if I revealed to you that the person who has caused you the deepest pain preserves in memory every single detail of what they have inflicted upon you? Carl Jung once stated, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." However, here is what Jung did not unveil to you in that famous assertion. And what I am about to reveal will demolish every conviction you have developed regarding people who oppose recognizing their own mistakes. At the end of this analysis, you will understand the reason why certain people manage to rest serenely while you remain vigilant, reflecting on every term, on every instant, on every expression of suffering that appeared on your face when they deceived you. I would like to begin with a reality that will make you shudder. They remember everything. That person who annihilated your trust, who pushed you to doubt your perception, who made you feel as if you were going insane, preserves every single detail. But before we proceed, give the video a like, share it with people who could benefit from it, and write in the comments from which city you follow our YouTube channel. Every term they have pronounced, every promise they have violated, every moment when they have observed you yield under the weight of their deception. According to Carl Jung's revolutionary theory of the shadow self, all of us guard within ourselves aspects of ourselves that we would prefer not to admit. Jung identified, through decades of clinical activity, that the more we attempt to suppress these uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the more strength they acquire over us. But it is at this point where the situation becomes disturbing. The people who have damaged you do not suffer from amnesia. They are suffering from something much more premeditated, what Jung called shadow projection. The unconscious action of rejecting one's own darkness by forcing you to carry it with you. But stop, there is something even more concerning in this pattern. And if you have ever wondered why some people manage to devastate your serenity and then proceed with their existence as if nothing had happened, what I am about to tell you will transform everything you believed you knew about human nature. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But what happens when a person opposes transformation? What occurs when they opt for comfort instead of consciousness, denial instead of evolution? They do not simply forget, they actively choose to forget. Because remembering would require something for which most people are not psychologically equipped. True responsibility. And responsibility, as Jung identified through his innovative work with patients, requires the most frightening thing of all, genuine change. Jung wrote in his personal letters, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." These people who damage you have built their entire identity around never having to confront that terror. They have erected elaborate psychological defenses to avoid precisely what would make them free. Do you know what these people are addicted to instead? Comfort, ego protection, denial wrapped in a pretty bow of, "I don't remember it that way," or, "You're too sensitive." Carl Jung discovered through decades of psychological research that the human psyche does everything possible to protect its own self-image. He called this protective mechanism the persona, the mask we wear to hide our true nature, not only from others, but also from ourselves. According to Jung's clinical observations, when someone damages you and then behaves as if it never happened, they are not just lying to you. They are maintaining what he called the provisional life, a psychological state in which someone avoids the deeper work of becoming who they really are, remaining perpetually comfortable, perpetually justified, perpetually innocent. And it is here where the situation becomes truly complex. And this is something that will make you question every interaction you have ever had with someone who refuses to acknowledge their mistakes. Jung said, "What you resist persists." But he also identified something even more disturbing. Some people have learned the art of making their resistance seem like your problem. When someone damages you and then behaves as if nothing happened, they are not just protecting themselves. They are actively destabilizing you. They are making you question your memory, your reaction, your entire emotional reality. Maybe it wasn't that serious. Perhaps I reacted excessively. Maybe I'm amplifying it. Stop here. According to Jung's extensive work on psychological manipulation, this is exactly what happens when someone's shadow meets responsibility. They don't respond with remorse, they respond with deflection. They don't assume responsibility, they transfer it. They don't heal the wound, they make you doubt you're even bleeding. Jung called this phenomenon psychological projection, but it goes deeper. It is what modern psychology recognizes as a form of gaslighting, which makes you doubt your perception of reality to protect their self-perception. Carl Jung discovered something profound about human behavior. The privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you really are. But some people have identified something even more powerful, the privilege of never having to become anything, mastering the art of strategic silence. Their silence is not casual. It is not passive. It is not even true silence. It is a weapon. And what I am about to tell you about this weapon will explain why you have felt so confused, so lost, so desperate in the attempt for a closure that never comes, and why they seem to become stronger every time you weaken. When someone damages you and then disappears into silence, that silence is not empty, it is power. Jung wrote extensively about power dynamics in relationships, and he understood something crucial that most people miss. Silence transfers the weight of confusion onto the person who is already suffering. Think about it. When they say nothing, you start saying everything. You relive conversations in your head. You over-explain your feelings. You question your reactions, hoping for a response that will never come. You analyze every word, every gesture, every moment of contact, searching for signs of remorse that simply are not there. It is not coincidence. It is the entire strategy. Carl Jung said, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." But these people have built their entire identity looking outside, projecting their shadow onto you, making you carry the weight of their unprocessed guilt while they walk away unscathed. According to Jung's research on what he called unconscious competence, some people become masters at emotional manipulation without ever consciously choosing to do so. They develop an intuitive understanding of how to discharge the weight of emotional labor onto others, protecting themselves from any consequences. But here is what will shock you most about people who use silence as a weapon. And this insight, drawn from Jung's most controversial work, will reveal the true psychology behind their behavior. Jung discovered that silence, when used strategically, creates what he called psychological dependency. The more someone withholds the response you need, the more desperate you become for any kind of recognition. And that desperation serves their needs perfectly. It puts you in the position of chasing, of softening your boundaries, of backing down from your truth just to get any kind of response. It makes you grateful for crumbs of attention from precisely the person who should be begging your forgiveness. Jung wrote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." But people who turn silence into a weapon have discovered something even more powerful. They can make you fear entering your cave of self-worth, keeping you focused on their empty cave of non-response. According to Carl Jung's pioneering work on the collective unconscious, we all share certain archetypal patterns. One of the most destructive is what Jung defined as the innocent archetype, the part of the psyche that refuses to acknowledge its own capacity to harm. But Jung also discovered something that will disturb you. Some people do not access this archetype only occasionally. They live there permanently. They have made innocence their identity, which means they can never be wrong. And here is what will surprise you about people who do not know how to apologize. This insight, drawn from Jung's personal analysis of his most difficult patients, will change everything you thought you knew about responsibility. Jung discovered that people who systematically avoid taking responsibility have developed what he called unconscious competence in emotional manipulation. They do not simply hurt people casually and then forget about it. They have unconsciously learned the art of hurting others while protecting themselves from any consequences. According to Jung's clinical notes, these individuals act based on what he calls psychological inflation. a state where the ego becomes so enlarged that it cannot tolerate any information that contradicts its self-image. When in this state you ask someone to take responsibility, you are not simply asking for an apology. You are asking them to completely deflate their self-esteem. And it is precisely for this reason that they cannot do it. When conflict arises, when emotions emerge, when responsibility is required, observe what happens. They disappear. They remain silent. They change the subject. They post something cheerful on social media. They surround themselves with people who validate their version of events. This is not overwhelm. It is a pattern. It is not confusion. It is strategy. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." These people have not made their destructive patterns conscious. On the contrary, they have made them systematic, predictable, and incredibly effective. He wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. But what happens when one of these substances is emotionally inert?" According to Jung's developmental psychology, some people reach their emotional limit long before reaching honesty. They will make up excuses for you. They will give you silence. They will distract you, but they will not give you what you really need. Authentic recognition. The apologies you never receive do not reflect your worth. It is a reflection of their ceiling. Their emotional range reached maximum level long before reaching responsibility. Jung discovered that true apologies are not limited to words. They require what he called psychological integration, the ability to contain both your light and your shadow, your good intentions and your harmful actions, your love and your capacity to cause damage. Not everyone has developed this integration. Some people still live what Jung called psychological inflation, a state where the ego is so enlarged that it cannot tolerate any information that questions its self-image. Carl Jung discovered that psychological patterns repeat until they become conscious. But what happens when someone commits to keeping their own patterns unconscious? What I am about to reveal about these unconscious patterns will help you identify them before getting trapped in their web. And Jung's final warning about this type of people will protect your peace forever. Jung identified what he defined as the compulsion to repeat, the unconscious impulse to repeat familiar patterns even when they are destructive. People who hurt others without feeling remorse do not simply make random mistakes. They are following an unconscious model that satisfies their psychological needs. According to Jung's research, these individuals will constantly choose environments that protect their illusions. They will surround themselves with people who will not challenge them, with friends who will nod, with partners who will not oppose them. They create what Jung called psychological echo chambers, which keep away the mirror of self-reflection. Because once they start looking in the mirror, the entire illusion collapses. The illusion that they are harmless. The illusion that they were simply doing their best. The illusion that everyone else is simply too sensitive, too dramatic, or too needy. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." These people have built their entire life on avoiding that terror. They have developed what he called unconscious competence in emotional avoidance. They can hurt someone and then immediately create a psychological framework that absolves them of all responsibility. And here is the most liberating truth Jung ever discovered about difficult people. This insight will free you from the cycle of waiting, hoping, and exhaustion in trying to drag someone toward emotional maturity. Jung understood something that will change your life. You cannot make unconscious people conscious. You cannot force someone to see what they are determined to ignore. You cannot love someone into emotional maturity if they are committed to remaining emotionally immature. According to Jung's final writings on human relationships, the most radical act of self-love is accepting that some people will never give you what you need. Not because you do not deserve it, but because they do not have the psychological capacity to provide it to you. Their inability to apologize, to take responsibility, to acknowledge your pain. It is not a reflection of your worth. It is information about their level of development. It is they who show you exactly who they are in their current phase of psychological evolution. Jung discovered that trying to extort responsibility from someone who is emotionally unavailable is like trying to draw water from an empty well. The well is not broken, it is simply dry. And no amount of perseverance, patience, or love will make water appear where there is none. Carl Jung spent his entire career teaching people to integrate their own shadow, to become whole, to face themselves completely. But he also understood something crucial. This work is voluntary. No one can be forced into consciousness. And here is the final truth that will free you from every person who has ever hurt you and behaved as if nothing happened. Jung said, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." The people who have hurt you are still dreaming. They are still looking outside, still projecting their shadow, still avoiding the mirror of self-reflection. But you have done the work. You have looked inside. You have sought truth, responsibility, healing, growth. You have been awake in a relationship with someone who chose to remain asleep. According to Jung's deepest insight, your healing does not depend on their awakening. Your closure does not require their consciousness. Your peace does not need their permission. Your worth does not need their validation. The person who hurt you and behaves as if nothing happened, they know exactly what they are doing. They remember every detail. They are simply not psychologically equipped to face the truth of their actions. And now you know exactly what you must do. Stop waiting for them to evolve. Stop explaining your pain to people who profit from not understanding it. Stop carrying the emotional weight for relationships where you are the only one doing the work. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But he also discovered that the most liberating thing is to accept others completely, including their limits, their unconsciousness, their refusal to grow. When you stop trying to make unconscious people conscious, you free yourself to invest in relationships with people who are already awake. When you stop waiting for emotionally immature people to mature, you create space for emotionally intelligent people to enter your life. The goal is not to make everyone conscious. It is to become conscious enough to protect your own peace from those who refuse to do their inner work. This is the true shadow work. This is true integration. This is true freedom. According to Carl Jung, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The people who have hurt you without remorse have taught you something invaluable about your strength, about your worth, about your capacity for healing. They have shown you what you will not tolerate. They have revealed what you truly value. They have proven that your peace deserves to be protected. And this is the hidden gift in the wound. The awareness that you deserve people who can meet you at your same level of emotional maturity, who know how to accept discomfort, who know how to face their own shadows, who know how to grow alongside you. The apologies you never received were not about you. They were about them. They were about their limit, their limitations, their choice to remain unconscious. But your healing, your growth, your freedom, all of this is about you. And it is exactly there where your power resides. Jung said it better than anyone else. The privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you really are. You know who you really are. You are a person who faces truth, who seeks responsibility, who believes in growth, in healing, and in authentic connection. And it is exactly this that you should seek in return. Thank you so much for staying with me during this exploration. If you found today's discussion useful, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who could benefit from it.